Welcome to the Justin Strawn podcast. Be glad to be back with you guys recording yet another podcast. It's been a while since I've been recording any type of content whatsoever, so I'm glad to be back doing this. Real quick, some thoughts on why I'm doing this and some reason why I'm not doing what I was doing previously. First and foremost, the purpose of this podcast is just to talk about things that I like. So whatever we're going to talk about, we'll talk about Mississippi State sports. We'll almost always lead off with that because what little bit of internet notoriety I have, most of it is based off of my affiliation with Mississippi State and covering them since really 2013. So we will be doing a little bit of Mississippi State coverage almost every single time that I record. And how often I record, I don't know, once a week, once a month, twice a week. I don't know. It just depends on how often I have a chance to actually do this. So like I said, I can't give you a real set schedule on how often I'm going to be doing this, guys, because I honestly don't know. It just depends on how much time that I have. And that's kind of the way that's going to be working going forward with this podcast. If you are listening to this and you're like, hey, I thought you were recording with Ryan Nelson. Y'all haven't done that in a while on the Main Attraction podcast. Yeah, we did. And unfortunately, because of the fact that it's just really difficult to set a definite time and get with somebody else to record, that is the reason why we're not recording anymore. Unfortunately, I would have loved to kept doing that. I enjoyed it. Ryan enjoyed it. We thoroughly thought it was a lot of fun. I thought we did really good work, but unfortunately, my schedule, most significantly, my schedule just wouldn't really allow us to record consistently as much as I would have liked this past really 6 months. So, like I said, the difference between this and that, it's much easier to do this by yourself. I don't know if I'll have as many listeners as a result, because sometimes podcasts with it's just one person can be kind of difficult to listen to. So I'm going to do my best to make this as entertaining as possible for you guys, since you are coming out and actually listening to it. So that's kind of the way this will work. But yeah, so we'll do some Mississippi State stuff almost every single time that I record. Not quite maybe not every time, but pretty close. We'll also talk some pro sports stuff. How much pro sports stuff we'll talk, I don't know. It just depends on how much I'm interested in it. And we'll talk a little bit about the World Series today, because I'm a week late, but I was very interested in that, to say the least. Some other stuff that we'll talk about, and other stuff we'll just talk about things that just kind of floats my boat. So we might talk about books, we might talk about religion, we might talk about video games. I don't know. It just depends on whatever has kind of got me fired up and kind of got me interested in it at the time. So that's kind of the purpose of this. I'm kind of modeling it after Bill Simmons. His podcast is basically sports, but he also talks about things that he just likes as well on his podcast. And that's kind of what I'm doing here with this. So if you like it, I appreciate it. It'd be great if you could give me a like and a follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I will be distributing it to as many as I can. So I really appreciate that. It will help get the podcast into the ears of new listeners, and that would help me out a whole lot. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. We are starting off with Mississippi State. Now, I will say this. I will always do my best to give you guys who are coming here for whatever reason, whether it be movies, whether it be Mississippi State, whether it be pro sports, whatever it may be, I will do my best to put links or to put descriptions of where the different types of coverage will start in the show notes. That way, if you don't want to listen to the stuff about Mississippi State, or if you don't want to listen to the stuff about pro baseball or pro football or whatever it may be, you can find it in the show comments. So, all right, let's start with Mississippi State, though. This past weekend, Mississippi State played Georgia. They ended up losing 41-21. And I'll just go ahead and tell you this much right now. This is going to be very off the cuff stuff. I'm not doing deep dives into statistical breakdowns or anything like that, but I just want to let you guys know that was a rough game to watch. It was a really, really rough game. And silly me for thinking they actually had a chance to win, because I kind of convinced myself that they had played really well against Texas. They played really well against Florida. They played really well against Tennessee. And all they need to do is come out and do what they did in those 3 games. And with the win against Arkansas, I thought they had maybe found something there and could find a way to win that game. And unfortunately, that did not happen at all. I will say this, it was interesting watching this game play out, because when Mississippi State was going into the halftime, as they were approaching halftime, it was 17-7. Georgia was probably going to just take a delay of game penalty and then punt the ball away, with it being 17-7. But then Mississippi State jumps off sides right before the half, after Georgia repeatedly does this twice, because Mississippi State took a timeout after they did the first time. They run their team off. They run their punt unit off the field, and then they run their offense on the field right before they're getting ready to snap. And they were probably just going to take a 5-yard penalty and delay of game. And Gunnar Stockton ends up doing a hard count, does the clap thing, and Mississippi State players jump off sides. I don't remember who it was, but somebody jumps off sides, and Georgia ends up going down the field and scoring because that gave them a first down, and they score right before the half. And this is one of the reasons why I hate the fact that Jeff Levy. Now, I don't know who wins the toss because most coaches prefer to defer, and Jeff Levy always elects to receive the kick. Maybe we won the toss. I don't know. Maybe we didn't win the toss. I don't know. But the reason why I hate getting the ball first and not deferring to the second half is for this very reason. Georgia comes down. They score with about 10 seconds left at the end of the half, and then they get the ball right back at the beginning of the second half. So it goes from 17-7, with about 30 seconds left in the second quarter. And now all of a sudden it's 31-7. And the game is out of reach. And this is one of the reasons why I hate getting the ball first. And Jeff Levy does it every single time. He wants to get his offense out on the field at the very beginning of the game. I hate it. I hate it. I don't know why he does it. I guess some people just like to go with what they think is their strongest suit. And I think Mike Leach was kind of the same way. I just don't like it. I would much rather defer and make sure you have the ball to begin the second half, but that's just me. So, thoughts about this game. Look, we probably should have seen this coming. Georgia has not been playing as well as they probably should have throughout the course of this year. And they decided that they were going to play like the team that they were supposed to be during this game. And look, big picture, Mississippi State was probably always going to lose that game. We kind of did ourselves a disservice. At least some of us Mississippi State fans did ourselves a disservice by kind of convincing ourselves that we could win that game. And that just wasn't going to be the case. One of the things about this game is when you look at the big picture, Mississippi State fans should be pretty happy because how many games were you expecting to win this year? Were you expecting to win 3, 4, maybe? I mean, the odds makers had Mississippi State at 3.5 wins coming into this year as the over-under. And they got that. They went past that after the fourth game because they won their first 4 games of the year. And if you looked at just about any other prediction, most people had Mississippi State dead last in the SEC, and they're not going to, even if they don't win another game, they will technically finish above Arkansas. So, they will at least finish above them, but it's still an improvement over last year. So you're still way ahead of where you were at this point last year. Last year was just so pathetic. It was just absolutely pathetic. You end up going out and getting blown off the field by Toledo. You have no chance in any game that you play outside of those non-conference games, and you end up losing badly to a team you should have beat badly in Toledo. So you're in a much better place than you were last year. But the problem you have with this year, and I think one of the reasons why Mississippi State fans are kind of still upset about the fact that they played so poorly against Georgia, is because you probably should be a lot better than you are. And this is the frustration that a lot of people are having with Jeff Levy. You can forgive a 41-21 loss against Georgia if you win, just 1 or 2 of the other 3 games that you probably should have won. You should have, Tennessee was a back and forth contest. I think Mississippi State should have won that game, but it's not just hands down, State should have won that game. You can't point to anything and say that Mississippi State definitely would have won that game under most circumstances. It was very much back and forth. State had like a 10-point lead at one point, but they were never just completely dominating Tennessee at any point in that game. You look at the Texas game, though, you're up by 17 with like 12 minutes left to play. You've got to win that game. And the fact that they didn't makes a loss like this such a harder pill to swallow. And the fact that you have a game that you could have won against Tennessee, and if you don't just make a really stupid decision in Florida and you keep throwing the football when you're in field goal range, and it was not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. It was not a gimme. It probably would have been like a 48, 49 yard field goal if they're just running the football. But you at least give yourself a chance to win if you at least just start running the football on those last couple of plays, because there was like 30 to 35 seconds left in that Florida game. You could have just downed the ball and still had time to kick it if you're running the football at that point. But they don't do that, and they end up losing. by 2 points. That's the frustrating part about this. So if you just win, 2 of those games, or just win one, and you're bowl eligible at this point, you can probably swallow a 41-21 loss to Georgia a lot easier than you can today. What does it mean going forward? I don't know. Look, Jeff Lebby still has a lot to prove as a head coach. I was never just completely sold on him as a surefire slam dunk candidate. I know a lot of people in the Mississippi State program. It wasn't nearly as much outside. If you looked at it nationally, there was more questions about it. But I know a lot of people, when Jeff Lebby was hired, like, look at that offense. It looks great. It looks amazing. Yeah, get that guy here. And I just wasn't as sold. I'm just tired of hiring offensive coordinators. Like, I think he can still be a good coach. He's obviously done some really good stuff this year. I think he can be a very good head coach. But just the way some of the decisions that he makes just really frustrates me. Like that decision to keep throwing the football and then to double down on it when he was asked about it after the fact. I just didn't really respond to that in a really good way. I just don't know why that is the route that he took with that play call. And then, like I said, to double down on it just made even less sense to me once he started talking about it after the game. But the decision to keep throwing Blake Shapen out there, and look, Blake Shapen got hurt in the second half of the Georgia game. I don't know how serious the injury is. It's Monday morning when I'm recording this. I have no idea how serious that injury is, but the fact that they keep going to him, the fact that they keep using him when he's just not a good fit for what this team is. I think he is a good fit for what Jeff Lebby wants to do, but the way the roster is currently constructed, he's not a good fit. And the reason I say this is because Blake Shapen needs a good offensive line. He's not just the most incredible athlete to ever play the quarterback position. We've had much better athletes come through and play quarterback for Mississippi State in all the years that we've had here. So he's an okay runner. He's not a great runner, but he needs an offensive line that can block for him, because every single time that the pocket collapses, you know that he's getting sacked. And look, I think Mario Taylor, in a perfect world, would have had this year to redshirt, and he could have come in next year and been a redshirt freshman coming into the season next year and had 4 years of eligibility left to go and play and make an impact on Mississippi State throughout the course of his career. But because of the fact that just the way the team is currently constructed, they needed him to come in and play some throughout the course of this season. And now they've really needed him because of the Blake Shapen injury. Like I said, I don't know if Shapen's going to play this Saturday or not. But if Mississippi State wants to win at least one of these last 2 games, I think they've got to make the switch to Taylor, because Shapen just does not do well with this offensive line. He gets crushed almost every single game. And finally, he gets knocked out in the Georgia game. I'm surprised it's taken this long, to be just perfectly honest with you, because of the fact that the state line has not blocked very well. And I think one of the reasons why they don't play as well when Shapen's back there, because I think they do block a little bit better when Kamario Taylor is back there. But I think one of the reasons that they do block better when Taylor's back at the quarterback position is because you have an instance where they know Kamario Taylor is a big, strong, athletic dude. And if they don't block just perfectly and if their guy gets past them, they know that Taylor can actually bail them out. He can make something happen with his feet. He's big and strong enough that if one of those defensive linemen get after him, he may not just necessarily get brought down. If Shapen gets caught in the backfield, he's going down. I mean, we watch it every single week. When he is standing back in the pocket and that pocket breaks down, he's going down. That's just what it is. And he can't seem to find his hot routes. And that's one of the things I noticed with Kamario Taylor. He actually was able to find the hot routes. And it could be simply the fact that he is a much taller, bigger, stronger player than Blake Shapen is, and he can see the field better. But Shapen never can find his hot routes. He never can find the dump offs, because that's what you have to be able to do when your offensive line just can't block for you. You've got to find the quick routes that allow you to get the ball out quickly when the pocket is breaking down on you. And for whatever reason, Blake Shapen just doesn't do that. And he doesn't need to be capable of doing that. Like I said, I think he's actually a pretty good quarterback. And I think if you look at what he did in one of his healthy years at Baylor, he did really well. But the way that this team is constructed, the fact that they don't have an offensive line, especially without Albert Reese being in the lineup, they just don't play well. And like I said, with Taylor back there, I feel like they think that, you know what, I can play a little looser, I can play a little bit more free because I don't have to worry so much about if my guy gets past me. Taylor, I know, is definitely going down because that just doesn't happen. Look, Taylor is very raw. There's no question about it. He's not as accurate as he needs to be. There were some throws that he made on Saturdays like, oh, wow, that's not anywhere close. But that will get better with time. That will get better with reps. And I mean, in the two halves that he has played in against Arkansas and against Georgia, Mississippi State has scored way more with. They've been more efficient and they have scored more proficiently with Taylor as the quarterback than they did with Blake Shapen as the quarterback. There's just no getting around it. Like, I don't think it's a knock against Shapen. Like I said, I just don't think this. If you don't have a very good offensive line, you've got to have a certain type of player at quarterback to make up for that. And unfortunately, Shapen's not that kind of a quarterback. Like I said, he's an okay runner. He's not very big. He's not going to be able to shake off tackles, but Kamario Taylor can do those. And it brings an element to the offense that just simply isn't there with Shapen. Even if you lose a little bit of accuracy and you lose a little bit of passing proficiency, I think it just allows you to keep moving the ball forward. I think that's just one of the things that you have to do. And so that's what I want to see. If Shapen is healthy, what's Levy going to do? And I'm for sure what he's going to do, he's going to keep running Shapen out there. But that's one of the reasons why I just can't be completely sold that Levy is the guy that's going to take this team into the future, because he just continues to say, go out there, Blake, and go out there and get yourself killed. And I just don't understand it. So anyway, let's move on to something a little bit more exciting on the Mississippi State front. Mississippi State's basketball team got started last week. They struggled. They struggled quite a bit against North Alabama. At one point, they were down by 9 points right around the first media timeout on, I guess, Wednesday, wasn't that when they played? I don't remember exactly when it was that they played, but they were down by 9 points at that point, and then they just kind of took over. They became what the team that I thought they would become. It's going to be an interesting year for Mississippi State because they end up winning that game by 24 points against North Alabama. They have Iowa State tonight as I'm recording this, and I'm going to be very interested to see what this team is this year. It's basically a brand new team. You've got a couple of guys from last year, and obviously the guy though that you're most concerned about though is Josh Hubbard. But you've got a pretty highly touted recruiting class that's coming in, so you got some really good young guys that are coming in and should hopefully make an impact. But you've got some transfers that came in as well, and you need them to make an impact. And one of the concerning things is Jaden Epps barely played. He got off to a really bad start and almost didn't get back in the game at all. I don't know that he did get back in the game after he was benched. Maybe he was hurt. I don't know all the ins and outs about that. But I'll be very interested to see what this Chris Jans team is this year. This isn't really a put up or shut up year, in my opinion, for him, because you do have, for the most part, a brand new team. Next year might be. But with Chris Jans, what he's got to do, he's got to find a way to at least make some type of an impact, get into that first half of the SEC. I would love for them to finish around 5th or 6th. I know the SEC is a gauntlet in basketball now. That used to not be the case, but it is now. I would like to see him get to like around the number 5 or 6 spot in the SEC. And if you're doing that, if you are like the 5th or 6th seed in the SEC throughout the regular season, then you're going to probably be about a 4 or a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. And there's a big difference between being a 4 or 5 seed and being a number 8 seed, which they've been the past 2 years. And it just has not gone well. At this point, Chris Jans has taken the program back to where they were in Rick Stansbury. They were a good team that could make the NCAA tournament. And if they could just win a few more games that they shouldn't have lost throughout the course of the year, probably could have been, a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. But unfortunately, that's kind of been their case. Last year was a little bit frustrating because they were kind of scuffling throughout the course of SEC play. And then they ended up beating Ole Miss and Texas A&M back-to-back nights, or back-to-back games. And when they did that, I thought they were getting ready to take off. I thought that this team was about to really just kind of soar at that point, but they ended up losing, I think, their last 3 games. I think they lost to Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. 3 teams that going into those games, they should have won, and they ended up losing all 3 of them. Maybe they beat Texas. I don't remember, but they ended up losing some games that they should not have lost, and it set them back, and they ended up being like the number 11 seed in the SEC tournament or something like that, or 8 or 9. I don't remember what. Maybe they were 9. I don't remember. And they just made a really tough road. They ended up having to play Alabama in like the third day of the SEC tournament. And it's just, this team could be a lot better. Like I said, they're good. They're good. I really like Chris Jans. I just really would like to see him take the next step forward. My hope was by the third year, he'd have a little bit more offense. He'd have a little bit better team around Josh Hubbard. And they would have been, a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, a 5, or even a 6 seed at that point. I would have been happy with that. You still got a much better chance at getting past that first round game, and maybe even into the weekend. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. So, like I said, I'm going to be really interested to see what they can do with this team this year. Josh Hubbard, the one thing I saw that I liked from him in that game against North Alabama is he looks to be trying to find different ways to score, and besides just shooting 3-pointers. And look, that's not all that he did previously, but he did tend to kind of fall in love with that 3-point line. And I get it. I mean, he's a really good shooter. And look, he's an incredibly talented player. So they've got to find more ways to find more ways for him to score, to make a bigger impact on the game. I mean, he's probably going to average 20 to 25 points this year. And that's really, really good. The problem is, who else is going to go with him? That's been the issue since he's been here. These previous 2 years, he's been great. He's been wonderful, but he's not had much help outside of himself in terms of scoring the basketball. And they've got to find somebody who can help him in that regards. They've got the big, huge center that looks pretty good so far. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he looks pretty good. Looking forward to seeing if they can continue to build off that. I'm really looking forward to see what they do against Iowa State tonight. Iowa State is a top 25 team, or at least they were. I don't know if the AP poll comes out today. I don't know if they've lost. I don't know if they've won. I have no idea. I'm assuming that they won their first game. But this is a great opportunity for Mississippi State. They're going on the road, playing a top 25 team. In all likelihood, this will be a quad 1 win, unless a quad 1 game if they end up winning it. So I'm really interested to see what they do. Let me check and see what the line is on that game tonight. Anyway, I'm guessing they're probably about a 7 or 8 point underdog if I had to guess. But that's, like I said, that is strictly a guess at this point. But I'll be very interested in what they can do against Iowa State tonight. Anyway, we'll check back on them whenever I record again and see how the basketball team did in Iowa. Moving on. Let's talk some pro sports. Let's talk some pro baseball. The Los Angeles Dodgers ended up winning the World Series in just an absolutely epic series, an epic Game 7. The reason I'm going to talk about this a week after it ended is simply because I am a huge Dodger fan, and this series was exhilarating, but man, it was torturous to watch as a person with a rooting interest. The Dodgers didn't always look their best in this series. The only game that they really won comfortably throughout the course of it was Game 2. They won that game pretty easily, but they rode the back of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I always mispronounce his name. I think I got it right. 3 incredible wins. I mean, he ends up being the pitcher of record in 3 of the 4 games that they win. You can honestly make the case that they didn't play as well as the Blue Jays throughout most of the series, because the Blue Jays, when they won, they typically won pretty easily. They won Game 1 like 11-4, I think is what the final was. Games 2 and 3 go to the Dodgers. Game 4, the Blue Jays won pretty easily. Game 5, they won pretty easily as well. And then the Dodgers end up winning a nail biter 3-1 in Game 6. And in Game 7, there was the 11-inning classic. And we haven't even talked about the 18-inning epic game that was just incredibly hard to watch. I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning trying to finish that game, and it was just absolutely spectacular. Look, I love this Dodger team. I know if you're not a Dodger fan and you're listening to this, you're probably like, I hate them. I despise them. They're ruining baseball. I get that. I would probably think the same thing too if I weren't a Dodger fan. But look, Shohei Ohtani is amazing. He's just, I knew he was. I'd seen him play for the Angels, and I was like, wow, he's really, really good. He's incredible. But to be able to see it on your own team night in and night out is just something to behold. And he's also just a wonderful person. I mean, when people boo him, like, how can you boo Shohei Ohtani? He is just the nicest guy. Like, if he hits a ball into the stands, you see him like apologize and like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I mean, he's just a wonderful person as well, in terms of just being a human being, to go along with the fact that he's just an absolute amazing baseball player. So, like I said, that World Series was just absolutely amazing. It was just absolutely epic. I feel like the Dodgers will probably end up being the favorite again. Will they do it? I don't know. It's hard to win 3 World Series in a row. It's hard to win 2 World Series back to back. Even, I mean, there was so much made about the fact that this was the first time that anybody went back to back in Major League Baseball since 2000, when the Yankees did it from 1998 to 2000. So, do I expect them to be back? Yeah, I do. I mean, that's kind of, the Dodgers are very different in my fandom than the rest of my fandom, than my Mississippi State fandom, because, Mississippi State, I'm just hoping and praying that they can compete and they can put forth a competitive team and maybe surprise a few people along the way. The Dodgers, I expect to be in the World Series, and I kind of expect them to win it every year. And they've kind of started doing that. They've won 3 of the past 5, no, 3 of the past 6. Yeah, 3 of the past 6. So like I said, it's been fun. I'm hoping that I get more of them. So real quick, I want to end the show with something that I've just kind of finished up. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. I've been listening to a lot of stuff from Brandon Sanderson. I got interested in him. I've been interested in what he's read, because everything that I've ever heard is, he writes the type of stuff that I enjoy reading. And I would love to actually read books more often, but unfortunately I just don't have time. So I end up listening to audiobooks when I drive and stuff. I've read all of I started with the Reckoner series. That's more of a young adult type series, but it was really good. I thought it was really, really good group of books. Then I read all of the Mistborn novels. Now, I've not read the novellas. I know people tell me all the time I should read them, and I would love to, but I don't have time. But I've read all the main books in the Mistborn trilogy, and I finished the first 5 books in the Stormlight Archive, which are all that he has. And let me just tell you, these are incredible books. If you like fantasy, I would highly recommend you checking out Brandon Sanderson. Make sure that you're reading the stuff that is actual fantasy. Like I said, we're talking Cosmere stuff. And if you hear the word Cosmere, what is Cosmere? That is, think of it in terms of the MCU. Like, the MCU is Iron Man and Thor and Hulk and Fantastic Four and all that stuff. So, like, the MCU encompasses all those things, but there are separate stories inside of it. And that's kind of the way the Cosmere works. The Mistborn era, there's 2 different eras in the Mistborn. Takes place on one planet, while Stormlight takes place on another planet and has all this other stuff going on. I really enjoyed these books. I'm really interested to see where they go. I'll probably talk a little bit more specifically about some of them in future podcasts. I just kind of wanted to just kind of hit some of the highlights here on this one, but I just thought it was really good. So actually, the last thing I want to talk about, there's 2 things I want to talk about in terms of movies and television, because some of you made it here because of my movies and television takes. Pluribus. If you're not watching Pluribus on Apple TV, my suggestion is get you an Apple TV subscription if you don't have one, and go check it out. Pluribus was just an absolutely fantastic premiere. I don't want to spoil too much of it. I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview of what we got in these first 2 episodes. Basically, an event takes place in which the entire population, all of humanity, is turned into basically like a hive mind, and like they're all connected at some point. So this is very much like a dystopian end of world type stuff. And this is what kind of the premise. Like I said, humanity gets turned into this hive mind, but there's like 13 people on the planet that aren't affected by it, and they don't know why. But what's interesting about this hive mind they turn into, the hive mind seems to be really, really nice, and they seem to be really, really pleasant. And they, you don't completely lose your individuality, because your individuality is there, but it's there with everybody else. It's a really weird concept, and they do a really much better job of explaining it than I do. It's an interesting thing to watch, because the entire time you're thinking that she's right, because she's her thing is she's doing her best to try to figure out how to fix this, and she's horrible about it. She's absolutely just yells and screams at these people, and the people who aren't affected by it, they're kind of they don't seem so bad. And the reason why I think this show is just so interesting is because you kind of feel like you agree with her. She's probably right that this is a bad thing, that we shouldn't just be this big, huge hive mind. That isn't something that we should be wanting. But she is so unlikable that it's hard to really side with her. And you want to know how you're just really captivated by how is this going to play out? How are we going to get to the point where this woman is correct? And how are we going to get to the point where we can actually kind of see and understand the fact that she is actually correct? That's kind of what we're looking for in this show. And it's just really hard to see at this point. It's great performances. Let me see if I can find out like I said, I cannot remember the name of the lady who plays the main character. Who is it that plays the main character? Ray Seahorn. That's right. Ray Seahorn plays Carol. And like I said, she's just absolutely I mean, she's mad all the time. She's furious. She's angry. And everybody else that's going through this, they're just kind of like, well, they don't seem to be that bad after all. Maybe that's not as bad as you think they are. And like I said, there's a lot more to it. I really highly suggest you check it out. Like I said, if you don't have an Apple TV Plus subscription, get you one. Go check it out. I've been really, really impressed by this. This has a chance to be just an absolutely incredible show, and I'm very interested to see where they go with it. So I'm really, really looking forward to it seeing how this first season plays out. So one last thing, but I will hold off on that. We've been going for about half an hour, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. But guys, like I said, I don't know how often I want to record this. I don't know how often I'm going to be doing this, but I really enjoy making content, and this is about the only way that I can do it nowadays, is doing it on my own. So, like I said, maybe I'll do it. I'm hoping for maybe 2 times a week. We'll just kind of have to see how much time I have. But guys, I do appreciate you guys coming in, joining me for this first episode, and we will catch you next time.